Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you.
Join the meeting.
Talking to me. Do-do-do. Good morning. I can't see you. I see Vicky. I don't see Vicky. I see her V. How are you, Vicky? Uh-oh. Hello? Vicky, I can't hear you. Hmm. Vicky, I just put, there you are. Can you hear me? Connecting to audio, okay. Okay, I can hear there.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good. Good. I've missed seeing you. I was thinking I thought last week, and then I was thinking this morning, didn't I used to see her on the Zooms in the last class? And
Yes, all the time. This time it's not working out every Saturday.
that's okay. That's okay. I'm just glad to see you today. How are you?
Good.
Good, good.
Not bad. Yep.
Good. Is that a chosen shirt you have on?
It says because he lives, I can face tomorrow.
Okay. Have you seen the show The Chosen?
No, I have not, and I've been told to watch it. So
yes. Bill came home from church last year at some point, and one of the young women said, "You have to watch this show. You have to watch this show." And so he said, "Oh my gosh, it was so good. You have to watch this show." And I said, "Okay." And I just kept thinking, "Oh, these shows are usually pretty schlocky. Some are much better than others," but I had no desire to spend an hour plus one evening watching that show. I was mesmerized. It is fabulous. Fabulous.
yeah, I've been told that. So
you have to watch it. All of you, The Chosen. If you haven't seen it, you have to see it. It's amazing. Well, good morning, everybody. Daniel, I think I missed you on the forums this week. Did I miss you? You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
Stephanie can hear me. Ashley can hear me. Darren.
Tyler's got you.
Tyler's got me. I know Vicky can.
I can hear you.
Good. Okay. And Daniel, you're on mute right this moment. Okay, Daniel will join us. All right. Questions? Any questions? I realized as I got into this that this week that perhaps a little more clarity on output and outcomes, and then I added impacts. Yeah. What do y'all think? What are you thinking?
I think definitely a little.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think definitely I need a little bit more clarification between the outcome and the output.
Okay. So I went to a training several years ago, I'm afraid, and I liked the way they explained it. They had a big old whiteboard and they had a factory, or they had constructed a factory there, sketched one. And so you get input. It's what goes into the factory, right? So your resources is one of the things. So you have workers, you have machinery, you have I think my favorite movie is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, right? So you have to have what works, right? For him, he had to have Oompa Loompas because he couldn't trust, people in the United States or, yeah. So, he had to have workers. He had to have his factory. He had to have the people who created ideas and whatnot for them. So that's your input. Your output is what immediately comes out of there. So the output for Willy Wonka is chocolate bars and fizzy lifting drinks and the like. So that's your output. Your outcomes then are the faces on the children, right? That and when they eat a chocolate bar, and outcome is the desire to have that, and that when you find a dollar in the gutter, that you want to go buy a chocolate bar rather than something else. Let's see. So, and then an impact on that could be that the chocolate was so good and the feeling of happiness was so great that you don't want to do anything else but figure out how to share that happiness with others, right? So you're changing the culture of your community because everybody is being kind to everybody because of Willy Wonka's chocolate bars. That could be impact. So that's a simplification. So in the church, then when we talk about having classes, right, if we could wave our wands, and a lot of us said this, if we could wave our magic wish wands, and Stephanie, when you had bibbity boppity boop, I had to take it out, but I started with swish, and that was your wand whooshing through the air. Anyways, I just could see your wand waving there. When we're talking church, okay, so a lot of us talked about having classes or small groups. That's going to be an output, right? That's where if I had enough people, I could have a class. So gathering the people, if you will, that's a strategy. And I hope I'm not confusing the matter here. Jeff, have we had conflict together? Were you in my conflict class? Not yet. Okay. So when we do conflict, one of the pieces that we're going to work on are values. And so a lot of times when we categorize our values are more like nouns. Like I have a value of loving people. Well, loving people is in a way that's an outcome of our value. We have a value of love, right? Yeah, okay. We'll wait to conflict. That's all breaking down right now. My metaphor is not working, and I apologize for confusing you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so are you saying, like, if people are inspired to go out and do discipleship in their community, that would be an outcome?
That's an outcome. Yes,
Okay.
yes. And then the impact is going to be the result of that going out in the community.
Okay.
So I think it was, I know I was doing this later in the evening with Lucy's post that, an impact in the community of what was it that we were working with? Stephanie, you might remember. It was something like people were happier or something, or they wanted that for their community. It was changing how the impact it was changing how they saw their community. And so then the impact of that could be that, like in Columbia, the ugliness of our school board meetings currently because of masks, to mask or not to mask, that our school board meetings would be calm and civil conversation. That would be an impact because we're taking that out into our community, right? So in a way, we're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, because at this moment, this came to me last night, and I haven't thought this through, but it seems to me that these are results or products, and that they're moving out in layers, right? So it's, that ripple effect, so that we have the immediate, I'll try it this way, we have the immediate output. I've got people here. Now I've got to get people here, right? So I've got a Sunday school class, and the Sunday school class has come because that's what people just do, or because I've been inviting my socks off. And so now that's an output, and it's become an input, right? Because now we have the resources that we need to now we can have, we can raise up teachers. So that's an immediate output, but it's still an output having those teachers. Now we can have, another small group or something. Now that's an output, but the outcome really is where we start to see a changed life, right? How is that transforming somebody? It's that, so what? So the output is what we're immediately putting out, but it means nothing if there's not a so what. So how are we seeing people different, or even a person? At first, it may be a person different, and then that impact is where we're seeing communities different and transforming.
What's in my mind, I love the ripple effect, and I love the way that you put words to some of these things that I've been trying to describe anyway, but our outcome becomes someone's individual input, and that impact is their outcome, perhaps, of what we're doing. Is that a way to think of it, maybe?
Give me a second to try and put that into my brain.
Good luck, it took me 5 minutes.
Say it again slowly, yes.
Okay, so we have our output, and we have our outcome, and our outcome becomes the input for what individuals are getting because of what we're doing in the church.
Yes.
Then that impact is essentially, that outcome.
Good.
Okay, now I had it right the first time.
You're right. You're good.
Our outcome is an impact. Is their input.
Yes.
And then they have their own outcome and impact. That's the wave you're discussing, but it's all basically a cycle or a ripple, where our out is their in, and then their out is hopefully the next person's in, and that's how we spread this.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm getting it. I can't convey it, but I got it.
Yes. Okay, so here I'm gonna kind of give a little twist here, all right? Because that input or impact really is about the community and beyond. And so often what we talk about and we think, and this is part of social justice, like a social justice theology. What we want to see is an impact. We want our communities changed, right? We want our social structures changed, but we don't take into account that is an outcome that's an outcome, if you will, of someone's, well, it's the result of someone's transformation, someone's outcome, the outcome, there being an outcome, right? And so, see if this makes sense. So an outcome really is about individuals, right? And the impact comes because of what those individuals collectively, but not necessarily all together, do. And for me, and my theology says there is the Prince of Peace, and peace only comes through ultimately the Prince of Peace, that we humans are not going to do it on our own. And how do we do that? One person at a time. So Tyler, you strike on that by saying, with the impact, and it's, that impact is an individual's output, but it's like me touching you touching Darren, right? And then me touching Stephanie, who's gonna, touch Vicky, and that out and about. So that impact is, what could we say? It's diverse and diffused.
Yes,
Right?
it actually works better in a diagram than in words, doesn't it?
Oh, good.
I'm trying to explain it. But I think we're on the same page.
It brings to mind those, those champagne towers, where it's like the tower of the champagne glasses and someone pours from the top and then it pours out to all. Like, I get this picture of like that, but the champagne glasses can leave. So like, if I'm just pouring water, who cares? And the champagne glass is like, this is dumb. I don't want to be part of a water tower. So they leave. So that when we have the spirit, it becomes the champagne and the glasses want to stay. So like the output is liquid, but the outcome is whether it's water versus champagne. And if it's champagne, people want to be filled with it. So they stay in the tower. And if they stay in the tower, then they can pour out onto other people.
So where I would go back, I'm on board with what's happening here, but whether it's water or champagne, what that really is about strategy, about input. That's what you're putting into it, and that strategy is dependent upon our setting, the people with whom we work. So I can get real theoretical, or I can tell you the parts, but how you're going to apply that in your settings is going to be, because you know what that input is going to look like. It's like, Jeff, with you, that and I said this, I love that you think community, right? That what you have your individuals here, but you're very aware of the interweavings of community. So he wants to have effect on an impact on the community, but he knows all of that is grounded in immediate output and outcomes, and those outputs and outcomes may actually come from the community before it comes here within the congregation. Does that make, do you think, Jeff? You're nodding your head, so yeah, maybe.
Yeah, the way we've been looking at it is building disciples within the church. We've got some things that we're doing, which is our output. Then those people experiencing the change is the outcome. Then they are now influencers in the community, and the things they are doing, we're part of the output is they are then going out and increasing numbers into the community. And then another outcome that will come about as a result of that is infrequent attenders or those outside the church will start responding themselves, which will be another outcome. And then it just keeps leapfrogging.
Yes. And you had to get to the point of discipleship, right? Having your disciple groups. And so he had to figure out how that works in a rural community in Oregon. Right, that looks a bit different than what you're going to do in Tennessee or Kentucky or Ohio or Jefferson City or Kansas City, Golden Beach, a retirement kind of, maybe not retirement, Tyler, right? Well, it is, but also a summer kind of, it's on the lake, recreation.
Yeah. Recreational church. I love that. We could really appeal to people. But I know what you're saying. Yeah, we have a limited dynamic or a diversity, and definitely are seasonal. Definitely are seasonal down here.
And, there is a church, oh, come on, it's in Alabama. Oh, come on, just a bit away from the Georgia border, and I think it starts with an M. It's okay. It may never come to me. It's United Methodist, and it's an Air Force community. There's an Air Force base there. And it was just this little church, and they kept saying, oh, we can't do anything. We can't, people leave. They're just, they come and then they fly off and their families go, blah, blah, blah. And they got a minister there who said, wait a minute, people come and they and their family, they leave family behind. Their a spouse or loved one is taking off. You've got now essentially single parents that are here. You've got kids that are missing their parent, and they began to think, okay, how can we, and that was the day of evangelism, right? Because I can talk this completely from the evangelism place as well. So in that town, and the key was, we've got people attached to the Air Force. 75% of our community basically is Air Force. So how, what can we do to reach them? And really, Fred something was the minister back then, and this was in the 80s, and yeah, so they said, he said, so what can we do? How can we grow? Was that. Now though, if our what we want to see in outcome, and if we want to see an outcome, people's lives changed, and we want to see an impact, our community changed. I want to see like the people on my street changed. I want the school literally across the street. I want that to be a place where kids want to go and teachers want to stay. I mean, this is not considered the best of the schools in the school district, right? I just want my little neighborhood. I'll start with my street, and then I want to do that out a couple of blocks, or let me just go out one block deep, and then two. So I want to do that. And if others are doing that, then, oh my gosh, we're starting to make a difference in Columbia. Right. And then, so it's not just Columbia, it's like about the Columbia city councilwoman who's not running again because she wants to run as a state representative. And one of our state senators wants to run for US Congress. Right. So now we're seeing that change, but I want that change to come out of people whose lives have been changed in the church, not with people who just, are in it for political gain, who are in it because they're really pissed off and they want something to change. And this is a great soapbox, et cetera, which, okay, I'm glad you're pissed off, but could you please take Jesus with you? And the only way that's going to happen, right? You look at the impact or even the output of our going down and doing the sit-ins at the state House, Senate, right? We had that happen here, Darren, just a few years ago, and a bunch of our ministers, disciples ministers, we were down there. They got arrested. A number of them got arrested. This was like such a big thing. And one of the ministers was in his late 70s, a retired minister who was really into the social justice movement back in the 60s. He just, this was like the ultimate. He was scared to death. He'd been arrested. He had to come up with bonds. What if he had to pay a fine? What if he had a record, at 78 or whatever? So, and did any of that change? No. Do we have better Medicare funding or whatever? No. But what if we had spent that time changing lives or raising people? Okay, here's another piece. I just told my husband this morning, Columbia has a growing homeless population, like we do everywhere, right? How do we deal with that? It's wind chill, a few, like just before we got on, -3, 10 degrees outside. And so we have several shelters, but there aren't enough shelters. So we've taken our little bus depot. It's nothing like in the city. It's like this little bus depot. And now we're opening it in the evening as a warming center. But now, and we have maybe 5 shelters, and we have churches. The churches, it goes from church to church where they'll have the cots, people can stay. But what happens in the morning? You have to leave. You can't stay there in the building. So, I said to him, I think anybody running for city or county government needs to have to go to the shelter for a couple of weeks and say goodbye to people in the morning. Right now, I'm not advocating for any which way. I don't know. That's not my call. But what I am advocating is the transformation of somebody who says, wow, I have to look at this through different eyes. Yeah. So how are we going to change the world? One life at a time. And how do we do that? It's with what not just we're putting out. Is it that what we're putting out transforming people? What are your outcomes? And then how do you challenge them to come together? But even more than that, to be helping with the output. Hello, that's our outcomes. That's called evangelism. So that then that'll trickle out.
Chris, you kind of touched on my situation here at the lake, because I don't want to say we're transient, but we've got snowbirds, we've got, fixed income retirees, and then we got the people that are down for the summer. And I'm trying to change their mentality. And this has been a good week for me because I'm in your husband's class, and this is the time management and spending more time in the community thing. In fact, I've got an exercise on this tomorrow. I'm gonna do some stuff in the community tomorrow afternoon. But one of the things is I'm trying to change our perception of our little church as home base. It's not the place you visit when you're at the lake. It's your home base. And for some people, that might be the only church they know. And so we're really trying to stay connected with our snowbirds this winter through a couple different ways we're trying. And I think you're right. We can't claim to have an impact or an outcome if we only do that seasonally or accept an off season. Then that's not true evangelism. I'll take care of you when you're here, because then really then all we're doing is really just taking care of our own. And that's not really how we're supposed to do it. That's kind of what hit me this week.
Good. Yeah, you're spot on. Yeah, you go to the lake and you're kind of like on vacation, right? I'm at my rec house.
Yeah, but the reason I found this church is because my wife and I go to church, and it's important that when we're at the lake doing our recreation that we still go to church on Sunday. And I know that's not the way of the world I wish it was. That's still my goal, and one, like I said, one life at a time. But so I think that it is possible that people can go down there and have a good time and fish and stuff like that, and still squeak in an hour and 15 minutes, because we don't turn them away if they're in a suit and tie. I mean, we see all kinds of stuff, and it's definitely come as you are, and we're glad you're there. So yeah, it's different from what I thought that I would be doing, but I love it. I love the challenge.
Very cool. So again, boy, I'm convicting myself this morning. We talked about this a week or two ago, or no, it's been longer than that. Who would miss your church if it went away, right? So that, what would you miss if you went away? Or what do you miss, like in Tyler's case, what do you miss when you go away? And are you just missing the fellowship? And how does that fellowship help you to be different? And then that's an output, right? But more importantly, and here's that ripple, Tyler, as you were saying it, that now how does that fellowship help you help others? What difference is that making in others' lives that are not just in the church?
That's part of the challenge we have here, Chris, with this aspect of the cultural Christianity and this rural nature. In some places, churches that have social justice ministries or other support type of ministries can't really do them as well as places that are specifically designed for that, United Way or whatever it might be. And what I'm trying to help counter here is a perspective that the church functions well as a community center, and shift that so that if the church was not here, what was missed wouldn't be just the stuff that the church does to support the community. What would be missed would be the faith formation aspect of that. And that what we can do to help build and strengthen support services in our area, but not be a surrogate for that necessarily, but instead be the faith formation entity that would be sorely missed, and people would miss that, is this transition piece that is tough to navigate through, that we're working on.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You said something that struck a chord. Yeah, there are still in every community those who are not plugged in to, say, the Red Cross or, into other places. And in the Midwest, in rural communities, the Masons and the Shriners they're a force to be reckoned with. And you'll see church leaders, and they are leaders at top levels, particularly in the Masons. When we're looking at the rural communities, I've seen more Masons, and Eastern Star is the women's branch of, if you will, of the Masons. And I get frustrated because the Masons and Eastern Star are not a religious organization, that they draw on some religious and Christian, they may be religious in their own ways, but they draw on Christian stories, but those stories are real embellished. I forget now one of the stars, one of the points, and there's this whole story that goes with that point. I've had parishioners who've stood on that point of the star, and it's like, whoa, where did you get that? And I asked one of them, where on earth did you get that? Because that is not in the Bible, and I'm not sure, of these other pieces. But here are good, and again, that all across the board. The reason I've been invited to meetings of Star and Masons is because I've been the pastor of people who are in leadership, and those people are leaders in those congregations. Several congregations I've pastored. So they're good Christian people doing their thing in the Eastern Star and the Masons. And I wonder, okay, how much of the Christianity are you bringing in, transforming your, those groups? And how much of that are you bringing into the congregation and transforming in a different kind of way? Okay, that being said, I'm thinking of, well, I guess I was on that tangent because I was thinking, I just am flashing on a couple of communities where there's been a problem in, like, one was a firefighter who was seriously burned over, horribly burned over a huge percentage of his body. And it was the Eastern Star in that little town that held the spaghetti dinner fundraiser for that firefighter and his family. And there are people who went there that are not connected in any way, except that they live in the community. So knowing that regardless of how small our community, even in a community of 100 people or 50 people, you're going to have several that are not connected. And so it may be that as Jeff, you've got me thinking this because of the faith formation piece, that the difference it is in the Red Cross, that, more services, United Way. I know the United Way is always looking for more money. The United Way never, ever, ever has enough money to fund their different, the different nonprofits that they're supporting. But as we're changing here, then you're going to see more, hopefully, here's impact, right? Outcome and impact out here in these social agencies. The church, as you're saying, Jeff, doesn't have to be the end all be all. Right? We're creating the people who are going to be part of the end all be all. Right? Yeah. Vicki, is this helping at all? I love the buttons to get on. Are you on a computer?
On my phone.
Oh, oh my goodness. You are very brave. Okay, there we got both and picture. Is this helping at all?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Very good discussion.
It really is difficult. It's semantics. You just kind of, there's a semantic piece in there, but it's so much more than semantics, right? We really are talking about differences. And I have to reshoot all the videos, and I would like to tell you that I've reshot next week's, but it's not been reshot. And but the next time round, I'm really going to try to bring this home in a different way and add impact. I think thinking into impact may help with the differentiations.
I think the Willy Wonka example was really good, but I think where I get confused is I feel like I can always make another ripple. Like I'm like, okay, but it's this. Okay, but it's this. And that's where the semantics piece comes in for me, where it's like, okay, but is that outcome or is that impact? Or that's the confusion for me, I think. Because I do all of that naturally, but naming which one it is the difficult part.
Got you. Well, and another piece why it is so important to name it, it is about the evaluation, right? Was it Sue who talked to, who was it that talked about they have to do evaluations? It may have been, it was Ginger who said, you know, my job, we do evaluations, right? We have to do that. I never thought about doing that. And I was spot on. I thought, oh my gosh, because I've had oversight of regional women's ministries, and I never led them in evaluation of the regional women's meetings. I've done it, you know, with congregations, and we have a whole tool about how to evaluate a program. How does this do this? Or if you're going to have a program or a ministry, an event, again, I've got a whole event worksheet that, you know, and it builds in the evaluation as you're doing your planning. When are you going to evaluate that? What does that look like? So not to get there. And then, you know, to really look at that, to go back to the women ministry, you know, so what, right? And so what? Obviously, we didn't change early enough. Our input didn't change early enough to reach women who were not of that generation of women that were born in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Because even I was born in 60, and even by the time, you know, we start to hit that, you know, my then even being a young adult, the reason I ended up in Christian Women's Fellowship, Disciples Women Fellowship, I came in through United Methodist Women, and the reason I was in UMW was because those women took care of my children so I could come, and they loved me and were mentoring me. So, you know, it was that that women's group really they had learned in their own ways. They had that input that then an output was having a women's ministry, and that output had an outcome. They were loving, they wanted people to be there, they were going to do whatever they needed to do so that then, you know, an outcome was that this, ragtag kid who was, an addict, a young adult with kids, that she would be welcomed and loved, right? And then the impact is here we are today, right? So yeah, output, think transformation, a change of lives. And I don't know that that works across the board, but yesterday I just kept thinking that, because I had been reading so many posts, and then I'm thinking, okay, that is an output, that's an outcome. Whoa, I think that might actually be not an outcome, but another output. What did I say over there in Forum 1? Do I need to go back there and check, because it is. But I finally got to the place of, is there a life transformed because of it? Is there the potential of a life transformed?
I like a little bit of the semantics we're hung up in, because it's created a lot of good dialogue even on this call as we're trying to explain how we understand it or whatever. It's a great conversation starter, even if we haven't completely refined it. Love it.
Yeah. And when you get to your final projects, excuse me, which I'll get better outlined for you this week, you're taking all of this into account. Is that so what? Because in a lot of aspects, and Jeff, this, maybe not directly, but at least parallel to what you're saying. A lot of the work we're doing as churches, you can go out and do as a lion, as a shrine, well, not a shrine. Well, yeah, definitely as a shriner. What is it? In our community? It's one of the social groups. It's not the Lions. Anyways, we have ministers who are more active in, it's not the Lions, but like the Lions, that, in one of those social organizations than they are in their own church. And I think, oh my gosh, you don't have time to do this church thing because you're spending your time over at the Mizzou basketball games selling concessions, right? What would happen if you took that time and invested it into doing whatever that work is that the Lions are doing? But it's not that your work is the Lions' work. What the Lions are doing, they're really good at glasses and helping people to see, and helping people in rural areas get hearing tests and whatnot. That's not yours, but what is yours, right? Who's there? That's this other piece, right? Individual. This is such a strength of the church. God, 4 minutes. I'm going to stop talking just a moment, and I'm going to say this. Then Vicky's got last word question. Then we'll pray. So there's God, or the Spirit, Jesus brings together those who are in our church, and those of us that are in smaller churches. It's a whole lot easier to do it this way. That mission vision processes. There are different ways to do that. And I have one of my favorites, but I found there can be some pushback because it takes time to do that. And people, by the time they ask a consultant or someone outside to help them, they're desperate. They want quick answers. And it's like, sorry, this process is going to take you probably 9 months. And depending on whether or not you worked it, it's going to take you a year to do this. But in a smaller congregation, I can go in there and say, what are your gifts? What are your interests? What are your experiences? And what are your resources? And what do you have? What is that? Why did God bring you all together? You are not here by mistake. It's one of the best calls that you can do in church. If you're up front or you're preaching, God, you are not here by mistake. If you're a guest with us today, if you're visiting, you are not here by mistake. Now, we may not be the church for you or the congregation for you, but the Spirit brought you here because he or she wants you to be in connection, to have a relationship with Jesus and with God. But for whatever reason, she brought you here today. So now you look at that and you say, why did God, what do we do with these resources? What do we do with this experience? What is our special work to be done? And what do we need to do it? Because we need resources, right? In the chocolate factory, Willie had Oompa Loompas, right? Well, we have this ragtag bunch of folk, right? We Loompa a lot. So what are we supposed to be doing about that? And that is work before us. And then we begin to say, okay, what do we do that? So even the smallest of churches, this is important. And I catch this, I hear this from a lot of you, my church is small, we don't have, but what do you have? And what can you do with that? And if you can't do anything with it, I was thinking about this a lot this morning. If you can't do anything with it and you feel that you're called to ministry, and then perhaps your call is to be somewhere else, right? Hard words to say, and we don't have time for pushback. That's why I'm putting it at the end. But I would love, if you want to explore who you are, where you're going, one-on-one, we can make an appointment and talk about that. But keep that in mind. If your heart really is for growing the kingdom and growing people, and you really see that there aren't possibilities, I'd love to talk to you about the possibilities and what you might do. Because we can't do so much personalization here. I'd like to talk about that, but with you. But then the other part is, to do that self-exploration. Right? Vicki, it's yours.
I think you've answered my question, but now you've kind of concerned me when you said it might be have to go someplace else if you can't do with what you've got. Maybe that's a step to come after I'm done with my classes and am a little further on. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to go, but I still have learning. So does that make sense?
Totally. And please, I don't want you or anyone to hear that I think that's what you need to do now. I want to plant that seed, and it may not, a lot of times ministers stay in tough positions and are really literally being martyred. And, it's kind of like some of us put ourselves out on the cross, hey, yeah, just slash me again, poke me in the side. And what I say to those ministers is, if God is calling you to be a martyr, you be the best damn martyr you can be. I mean, excel at martyrdom, go for it, because that may be your call. That's between you and God. I can't tell you whether or not that's the case, but I'm saying that not a whole lot of people are called to be martyrs. And I just want you to be clear about that, and clear if there is something else that perhaps God is calling you to, but you, for whatever reasons within you, don't feel like you can do that you believe spiritually, mentally, emotionally, whatever, that you're supposed to be abused, right? So are you there because your call is to be a martyr, or you're called to be abused? Okay, so using that as my metaphor or analogy to come back there, it is that it may be that you're called to serve in that congregation, and that your call may not be so much faith formation with impact, right? But that, and it really is in the here and now, a chaplaincy call. And so it's being there, and a lot of times chaplaincy calls, what we do as churches are getting smaller and smaller. It's hospice, helping them to die with dignity, or to fall into through death, and to do that in ways that they don't feel guilty, that they can still, it's that dignity. That may be your call. But if you're, and I know this class, right, it is education and leader development, so we're we're being, we have to produce a final project or assignment, but it may be that your assignment, if you can't see a way of even doing, it may be saying, I don't know, I don't see what kind of impact our congregation would have or could have, or this is what it would look like, not this big grand scheme kind of thing. But, I don't have the input. I can't get the resources to go into that. I've got this one leader that I wouldn't even think of evaluating. That piece just isn't there. And I don't see that developing here. And if that really is the case, then think about making up a congregation. In a couple of my classes, there's a student who is Catholic, and so she's not in a leadership position at all within her parish. And so she made up a scenario and said, okay, here's my scenario. This is what I'm working with, and this is what I do in that setting. So yeah, I'm not, all that is to say, I'm not saying to leave, but it is that gaining clarity about your call. What is my call? What makes my eyes light up, right? What makes my heart beat a little bit faster? And that will help give us a sense of our call. Okay.
Yep, thank you.
You are welcome. Okay. And you would like to have that conversation, I would love to have that conversation whenever.
Okay.
Okay. And don't feel guilty if you don't. Okay. You don't ever have to avoid it. All right. None of you. Okay. You ready to pray? Oh, here we go. And Father, again, I thank you for knowing us, even when you placed us into our mother's wombs, even if we didn't know our mothers, or that you have known us from time immemorial, actually, I think, and that you've kept your hand on us. Jesus, thank you for your Holy Spirit that keeps your hand on us. Thank you for Holy Spirit. Thank you for the ways that you allow us to be your tangible touch, Jesus's tangible touch to others. Thank you for the calls that you place into our lives. And I ask this morning that those of us that are, that are caught in thinking about our call, our little C call, that you would move us, motivate us to think about our big C call, to continue to grow our relationship with you, to continue to grow our clarity in you, the clarity and the ability to hear your voice, increase discernment. So that we can more faithfully hear your call. For those of us that give us clarity, increased clarity, clearer clarity, vision, and deepen our ability to discern. Help us. Well, thank you for those who have poured into our lives, that we are the outcome of, and use us in even greater ways to create outcomes that are changing not just people, but having impact on the world. Jesus, thank you for being our Prince of Peace. We love you. Amen.
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 All right, friends.
God bless, guys.
Yep, God bless us.
Right.
I will see you during the week. Thank you. Thank you.
And Dr. Chris,
Karen.
Yes, and because you brought up discernment, say a small little prayer for me because I meet with the commissioning board to start my discernment team. So.
Way to go. When is that meeting? Is it coming soon?
12:30. Today.
Today.
Yes.
Woo-hoo. All
Yes.
right. Yes, yes,
Yep.
and yes. Well, may you know fully the presence of the Holy Spirit with you. May it bring you calm. May it calm, a sense of peace, to be yourself, and to do that in ways that they're able to hear you and to hear the Spirit through you, to see who you are inside, to recognize your potential, and affirm your big C call. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Amen.
And may blessings to all you.
Thank you.
Amen.
Bye.